Welcome to BL Hub. If you're a lover of boys' love stories or you do kick your legs while watching two men kissing, then you are at the right place. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share before we dive into this story. Thank you.
I never thought I'd be the type to fake my own death. But 3 months ago, when the 2 pink lines appeared on the test, everything changed. My name is Nick Reed, an Omega who had spent years suppressing my nature with blockers just to survive in a world that saw us as fragile. I worked as a junior designer in the creative department of Blackwood Enterprises, the billion-dollar empire run by none other than my ex, Simon Blackwood, the coldest, most powerful alpha I'd ever met. We'd been together for a year in secret. He called me his quiet obsession, and I believed him. Until the night I told him about the baby. I remember the rain hammering the penthouse windows as I stood in his study, hands trembling. "Simon, I'm pregnant." His silver eyes narrowed, the scent of cedar and storm sharpening with something dark. "That's impossible. You're on suppressants." "I stopped them last month. I thought we were building something real." He laughed short, sharp, cruel. "A child? With the merger closing and my board breathing down my neck? Get rid of it. I won't let this ruin everything." The words hit harder than any slap. I stared at the man I'd loved, the one whose mark I'd once begged for during my heat, and saw only calculation. No warmth. No future. I left that night with nothing but my phone and the clothes on my back. He didn't stop me. Didn't even call. Panic set in the next day. Simon controlled everything. My apartment lease, my bank accounts tied to company perks, even my medical records through his private clinic. If he found out I kept the baby, he'd force the issue. Or worse, take the child once born. Alphas like him didn't lose what they considered theirs. So I planned. Desperate. My best friend Mia, a beta nurse, helped. We staged a car accident on a deserted coastal road. I paid a shady contact to plant fake DNA evidence at the scene, hair, blood from a willing donor. The car exploded, thanks to some creative wiring. Authorities declared me dead within 48 hours. No body recovered, just ashes and grief. I cut my hair short, dyed it dark, changed my name to Liam Hayes, and fled to a small coastal town 3 states away. I rented a tiny apartment above a bakery, took odd freelance design jobs under the table, and hid my growing belly under loose hoodies. Every night, I pressed my hand to the swell and whispered apologies to our child for the father they'd never know. Months passed in quiet survival. The baby kicked stronger each day, a tiny reminder of what I'd fought for. I told myself Simon had moved on, probably already scented another Omega to warm his bed. Until the morning the bakery door chimed, and I froze behind the counter, flour on my hands. Simon Blackwood stood there in a tailored black coat, rain dripping from his dark hair. His scent slammed into me like a wave, cedar, storm, possession. His eyes locked on mine, widening in shock, then narrowing with fury and something raw. "Relief? Pain?" "Liam Hayes," he said slowly, voice low and dangerous. "Or should I say, Nick?" My heart stopped. The tray slipped from my fingers, crashing to the floor. He stepped closer, gaze dropping to my rounded stomach. The world tilted. "You hid a child, my child, for me," he growled. "And you faked your death to do it." I backed up until I hit the wall. "Stay away from us." But he didn't. He never would. His hand reached out, trembling for the first time I'd ever seen. "You think you can run from me forever?" I swallowed hard. "I already did. For 6 months. His jaw clenched. 6 months of thinking you were gone. 6 months of hell. The bakery owner peeked out, but Simon's alpha presence filled the room, making her retreat. "Come with me," he said. Not a request. "No. Then I'll wait. Right here. Until you realize you can't do this alone." I wanted to scream, to run again. But the baby chose that moment to kick hard, and Simon's eyes softened, just a fraction. He left that day. But he came back the next. And the next. I didn't know if I hated him more, or feared how much I still wanted him. I thought Simon would storm out of the bakery that first morning and come back with lawyers, private investigators, maybe even security to drag me back to the city. Instead, he did something far more terrifying. He stayed. Every single day. He rented the entire bed and breakfast across the street. The owner, Mrs. Callahan, gossiped about the mysterious handsome man in the black coat, who paid 6 months up front in cash and asked for the room with the best view of the bakery. Of course he did. He wanted me to see him, to feel him watching. I avoided the front windows after that. I worked in the back, kneading dough with Mia when she visited on her days off, pretending my life hadn't cracked open again. But the baby knew. Every time Simon's cedar storm scent drifted through the cracked door, carried on the sea breeze, he kicked like he recognized his father. Traitor. On the 4th day I cracked. I stepped outside during my break, arms wrapped around my middle like armor, and there he was, leaning against the wrought iron fence that separated the sidewalk from the tiny garden, sleeves rolled to his elbows, tie loosened. He looked exhausted. Dark circles under those silver eyes. For the first time in years, he didn't look untouchable. "You're going to scare away customers," I said flatly. "Good. Then you'll have time to talk." "I don't want to talk." "You don't have a choice anymore, Nick." "Liam," I corrected through gritted teeth. His jaw flexed. "You can call yourself whatever you want. You're still carrying my child." The words landed like stones in my stomach. I turned to go back inside. "Wait." His voice cracked, just once. "Please." I froze. Simon Blackwood didn't say please. Not to anyone. I looked back. He hadn't moved, but his hands were clenched at his sides so hard the knuckles were white. "I thought you were dead," he said quietly. "I stood at that funeral pyre they made for you. Empty casket, your picture on it, and I couldn't breathe. For weeks I couldn't sleep without smelling smoke. I kept thinking if I'd just said something different that night, if I'd held you instead of pushing you away." My throat closed. "Don't." I hired every investigator in 3 states. They found nothing. Because you were that good. Or maybe because I deserved to lose you. I laughed, bitter and small. "You think guilt is enough to fix this?" "No," he took one careful step closer. "But I'm not leaving until you hear me out. And until you believe I won't hurt either of you again." The baby rolled, pressing hard against my ribs. I winced and instinctively cradled the spot. Simon's gaze dropped. Something raw flashed across his face. Pain, wonder, hunger all at once. He lifted his hands slowly, like he was approaching something fragile. "Can I?" I should have said no. Should have screamed at him to leave us alone. Instead I stood still while his palms settled gently over the swell of my belly. The warmth of his hands seeped through my hoodie. The baby kicked again, harder this time, right against his palm. Simon exhaled like he'd been punched. His forehead dropped forward until it rested against mine. His scent wrapped around us, cedar and storm and something softer now, almost broken. "I felt that," he whispered. "I felt our child." Tears burned behind my eyes. I hated how much I still wanted to lean into him. "Don't," I said again, but it came out weaker. He didn't move away. "Tell me what you need. Tell me how to earn even 1% of your trust back. I'll do it. Anything." I swallowed. "I need you to leave. For real this time." "I can't." His thumb moved in the smallest circle over my stomach. "Not when you're this close. Not when I know what I almost lost forever." Silence stretched between us. The ocean crashed in the distance. A gull cried overhead. Finally I stepped back. His hand fell away reluctantly. "I'm closing early today," I told him. "Don't follow me home." He nodded once. "I'll be here tomorrow." And he was. The next week blurred into a strange routine. Simon didn't push. He simply existed on the edges of my life. He brought coffee from the cafe 2 streets over every morning, decaf for me, exactly how I liked it, with cinnamon. He left prenatal vitamins on the bakery counter when I wasn't looking, the expensive brand my doctor recommended. Once I found a soft cashmere throw folded on the bench outside, the tag still on. Navy blue. The same color he used to wrap me in after my heats. He never asked to come inside my apartment. Never demanded I move back to the city. But he was always there, quiet, steady, waiting. One evening, a storm rolled in off the water. Thunder rattled the windows of my tiny upstairs flat. The power flickered and died. I lit a single candle and sat on the couch with my hands on my belly, trying not to panic about the dark. A knock sounded at the door. I knew who it was before I opened it. Simon stood on the landing, soaked through, hair plastered to his forehead. Rain dripped from his coat onto the worn welcome mat. "The wind took out the line down the street," he said. "Half the town's dark. I just needed to know you were okay." I stared at him. Water ran in rivulets down his face. He looked wrecked. "Come in," I heard myself say. He hesitated. "You sure?" "No. But I'm cold and the baby's restless. And you're dripping on my doorstep." He stepped inside. I handed him a towel. He dried his hair while I lit more candles. The room glowed soft orange. He didn't sit. Just stood near the door like he was afraid to take up space. I sank onto the couch. "Why are you doing this, Simon? Really?" He looked at the flickering flame. "Because 6 months ago I lost the only person who ever made me feel like I wasn't just a name on a company letterhead. I thought money and power would fill the hole you left. They didn't. Nothing did." I hugged my knees to my chest as much as the bump allowed. "You told me to get rid of the baby." His eyes closed. "I know. I was terrified. Not of the child, of losing control. Of needing someone more than they needed me. I chose wrong. I'll spend the rest of my life making it right if you let me." The baby shifted again. I pressed my palm there, trying to soothe. Simon watched the movement. "May I?" I nodded once. He crossed the room slowly and knelt in front of me. His hands hovered until I guided them to my belly. The moment he touched me, warmth spread through my whole body. The baby rolled toward him like a magnet. Simon's breath hitched. He leaned forward and pressed his lips to the curve of my stomach, soft, reverent, trembling. I threaded my fingers into his wet hair before I could stop myself. He looked up at me, eyes shining in the candlelight. "I love you," he whispered. I never stopped. I was just too stupid to say it when it mattered. My heart cracked open. I didn't say it back. But I didn't push him away either. The storm raged outside. Inside, something fragile began to mend. The storm passed, but the calm that followed felt like the eye of a hurricane. Simon kept his promise. He didn't push. He came to the bakery every morning with decaf and a quiet nod, left vitamins or a warm scarf when the wind turned sharp, and disappeared before closing. At night he'd text once, * lock your doors. Good night, * nothing more. No demands. No ultimatums. I hated how much I started looking forward to that single message. I told myself it was just hormones. The baby needed stability, and Simon's steady presence was the closest thing to safety I'd felt in months. But deep down I knew better. Every time his hand brushed mine when he handed over coffee, every time his gaze lingered on my belly with that soft, unguarded wonder, something inside me thawed a little more. Then the outside world remembered we existed. It started with a phone call from Mia on a Tuesday afternoon. I was wiping down the counter when my burner phone buzzed. Whatever. Turn on the news. Now. I didn't have a TV upstairs, but the bakery had an old radio that doubled as a news station when business was slow. I twisted the dial. Blackwood Enterprises stock dipped 3% today after leaked documents suggested CEO Simon Blackwood has been diverting personal funds to fund a private search operation spanning multiple states. Sources close to the board claim the expenditures began shortly after the reported death of former employee Nicander Reed last spring. My stomach dropped. The reporter continued, voice crisp and eager. Reed, an Omega designer, was presumed dead in a fiery car crash. Blackwood himself attended the memorial. Insiders speculate the search may be connected to unresolved personal matters. I switched it off. My hands shook so badly the dial slipped. They knew I was alive. Or at least suspected. That evening Simon arrived earlier than usual. No coffee this time. Just him, coat unbuttoned, expression thunderdark. "You heard," he said the second I let him in the back door. "Everyone's heard." I crossed my arms over my chest. "Your board is turning on you because you're wasting company money looking for a ghost. It's not company money. It's mine. Every cent. That doesn't matter to them. They'll use it as leverage. You know how these people work. He stepped closer. I don't care about the board. I care about you. About our child. And what happens when they dig deeper? When they find out the ghost is very much alive and very pregnant? They'll drag us into the spotlight. Lawsuits, media, custody battles. No one is taking this baby from you. His voice dropped to something lethal. No one. I laughed, sharp and scared. You can't stop a media storm with a growl, Simon. You built an empire on controlling the narrative. Now it's controlling you. He reached for me. I stepped back. Don't. His hand fell. Pain flickered across his face before he masked it. I'm handling it. My lawyers are already filing injunctions. The story will die down in 48 hours. You really believe that? I have to. Silence stretched. The bakery lights buzzed overhead. Then my phone buzzed again. Mia? I answered on speaker without thinking. Nick, there's a black SUV parked outside my apartment. 2 guys in suits. They asked if I'd seen you. Said they were from Blackwood Legal. I told them to fuck off, but they're not leaving. Simon's eyes flashed silver. He snatched the phone. Mia. This is Simon. Stay inside. Lock everything. I'm sending security now, my personal team, not company. They'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up before she could argue. I stared at him. You're putting her in danger too? I'm protecting her. Protecting all of you. He already had his own phone out, issuing clipped orders. 2 units to Nurse Mia Callahan's address. Non-negotiable. Full detail until further notice. When he finished, he looked at me, really looked. I never wanted this to touch you again. But running isn't an option anymore. They know something's off. If I don't control the story, someone else will. And they won't be kind. My knees felt weak. I sank onto the stool behind the counter. What's your plan? He crouched in front of me so we were eye level. I issue a statement tomorrow. I admit I never believed you were gone. That I've been searching because... He hesitated. Because I love you. Because we're expecting a child. I'll frame it as a private matter that spiraled due to grief and misunderstanding. The board will hate it, but the public will eat it up. Romantic redemption sells better than corporate scandal. I searched his face. And if they don't buy it? If they push for proof? Then we give them proof. His hand found mine, slow, careful. Together. If you'll let me stand beside you. The baby kicked hard enough that I gasped. Simon's palm settled instinctively over the spot, steadying me. I'm scared, I whispered. I know. His thumb traced slow circles. But you're not alone anymore. I didn't pull away. That night he stayed. Not in my bed, on the couch, still in his shirt and slacks, one arm draped over his eyes like he could will the world to behave. I lay awake upstairs listening to his breathing through the thin floorboards. Steady. Present. The next morning the statement dropped. Headlines exploded. Blackwood CO confirms. Former lover alive. Pregnancy revealed. I never stopped loving him. Photos surfaced within hours, grainy ones from a telephoto lens. Simon outside the bakery. Simon kneeling, hand on my belly through the hoodie. Simon kissing the curve of my stomach in candlelight, visible through my apartment window during the storm. My face was blurred in most shots. But not his. His expression in that last photo, raw, reverent, made my chest ache. The comments were a war zone. Some called it beautiful. Others called me a gold digger, a liar, a runaway Omega who'd trapped a billionaire. Simon's phone didn't stop ringing. Board members. Reporters. His mother. He silenced them all. By afternoon he was back at the bakery door, holding a single white rose, the same kind he used to leave on my desk before everything fell apart. I'm sorry, he said. For the exposure. For not shielding you better. I took the rose. You didn't leak those photos. No. But I should have anticipated the paparazzi. I was careless. I looked past him. A crowd had gathered across the street. Phones up, whispers loud. Someone shouted, "Is it true, Mr. Blackwood? Are you getting married?" He didn't answer them. He just looked at me. Will you let me take you somewhere safe? He asked quietly. Just for a few days. Until the frenzy dies. My beach house, private, gated, no press. You and the baby deserve peace. I glanced at the swell under my sweater. At the rose in my hand. At the man who'd spent months proving he could wait. I nodded once. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. That night we left under cover of darkness, his security in front and behind. I sat in the back seat of the SUV with his coat draped over my shoulders, his hand resting lightly on my knee the whole drive. No words. Just the quiet rhythm of tires on the highway and the steady beat of our child between us. For the first time in months, running didn't feel like escape. It felt like coming home. The beach house sat on a private stretch of coastline where the cliffs dropped straight into the Atlantic. No neighbors for miles. Just wind, waves, and the kind of silence that made every heartbeat sound too loud. Simon's security team swept the property before we arrived, then vanished into the perimeter like shadows. For the first time since the headlines broke, I could breathe without feeling eyes on me. Inside, the house smelled faintly of cedar and salt, Simon's scent layered over everything. Wide glass walls faced the ocean, floors of pale wood, furniture in soft grays and blues. It felt lived in but untouched, like a place he came to when the city became too much. He led me upstairs without a word, carrying my small duffel like it weighed nothing. The guest room he showed me had a king bed piled with white linens, a balcony overlooking the water, and a crib already assembled in the corner. Simple oak, no frills, but clearly brand new. My throat tightened. Did this, when? Last week, he said quietly. After the storm. I didn't know if you'd ever see it, but I needed to do something. I ran my fingers along the rail. The baby shifted, a slow roll that made me press my palm there. Simon watched the movement, expression unreadable. I'll be downstairs if you need anything, he said, turning to leave. Wait. The words slipped out before I could stop it. Don't go yet. He paused in the doorway, shoulders tense. I sat on the edge of the bed. I don't know what I'm doing here, Simon. I don't know if I can forgive you. I'm tired of being afraid all the time. He crossed back to me slowly, like he was afraid I'd bolt. When he reached the bed, he didn't sit, just knelt again, the way he had in the bakery during the storm. His hands rested lightly on my knees. Then be tired with me, he said. Let me carry some of it. I looked down at him, really looked. The man who once commanded boardrooms with a glance now knelt in front of me like I held all the power. Maybe I did. Tell me the truth, I said. All of it. Why did you push me away that night? Why was a baby so terrifying? He exhaled, long and ragged. His forehead dropped to rest against my thigh for a moment before he spoke. My father. The words came out rough. He was an alpha too, ruthless, controlling. When my mother got pregnant with me, she was young, barely out of college. He married her for optics, then spent years reminding her she was replaceable. After I was born, he barely looked at me unless it was to criticize. Said omegas were weak links. Said love made you soft, and soft men lose empires. I stayed silent, letting him unravel. When you told me you were pregnant, it was like every warning he ever drilled into me came screaming back. I saw myself turning into him, trapping you, resenting the child because it meant vulnerability. I panicked. I thought if I cut it off clean, I could protect you both from that version of me. His voice cracked on the last word. I was wrong. So fucking wrong. I lifted my hand, hesitated, then threaded my fingers through his hair. He leaned into the touch like a man starved. I spent months telling our baby stories about you, I admitted. The good ones. The way you used to hum when you thought I was asleep. How you'd trace patterns on my back after my heats. I didn't want them to hate you. I just didn't want them to get hurt by you. Simon lifted his head. His eyes were wet, silver gone molten. I won't hurt either of you again. I swear it on everything I have. The baby kicked, sharp, insistent. Simon's hand found the spot immediately, palm warm and steady. We stayed like that, foreheads touching, breathing each other in. His scent wrapped around me, cedar and storm now laced with something deeper, regret, hope, devotion. I closed the last inch between us. Our lips met soft at first, tentative, like we were both afraid the other might disappear. Then he tilted his head, deepened the kiss just enough that I felt the tremor in him, the careful restraint. His hands slid to the small of my back, pulling me closer without crowding the swell between us. I tasted salt, maybe from the air, maybe from tears neither of us acknowledged. When we parted, his breathing was uneven. Mine too. I missed you, he whispered against my mouth. Every second. I missed you too, I said, the truth slipping free before I could cage it. Even when I hated you. Smiled. Small, broken, beautiful. I'll take that. We didn't speak much after. He helped me settle into the room, brought me herbal tea, then left me to rest. But he didn't go far. I heard him pacing the hallway later, checking locks, murmuring low into his phone, handling whatever fallout still lingered from the press release. I fell asleep to the sound of waves and his quiet footsteps. The next morning I woke to sunlight streaming through the glass and the smell of coffee drifting upstairs. I found Simon in the kitchen, sleeves rolled, attempting pancakes. He looked ridiculous, billionaire still with flour on his cheek, and somehow perfect. You cook now? I asked, leaning in the doorway. Badly, he admitted. But I figured you'd be hungry. I took the plate he offered. The pancakes were lopsided but warm. We ate on the balcony, ocean breeze tangling my hair. For once, no headlines, no hiding. Just us. Mid-morning his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, jaw tightening. What is it? My mother. He set the phone face down. She wants to meet you. Officially. I froze. Elaine Blackwood, Ice Queen matriarch, the woman who'd once told Simon that Omegas were decorative at best. She saw the photos, he continued. This, not happy. Understatement. She's flying in tomorrow. I can tell her no. I thought about it. About running again. About facing her. No, I said finally. Let her come. I'm done hiding. Simon's gaze softened. He reached across the table, palm up. I placed my hand in his. Thank you, he said. For what? For giving me a chance to prove I'm not him. I squeezed his fingers. You already are proving it. That afternoon we walked the private beach. Sand cool under my bare feet, waves licking close. Simon kept pace beside me, one arm hovering at my back in case I slipped. When the baby kicked again, he stopped, knelt in the sand, and pressed his ear to my belly like he could hear secrets. I laughed, the first real laugh in months. He looked up, eyes bright. What? You look ridiculous. I don't care. He rose, cupped my face with both hands, and kissed me again, slow, deep, full of everything we hadn't said yet. The wind whipped around us. Salt on our lips. His thumbs brushed my cheekbones like I was something precious. When he pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine. Marry me, he whispered. My heart stuttered. Not today, he added quickly. Not like this. When you're ready. When you believe I deserve it. Just, let me ask again someday. Properly. I searched his eyes. Saw only truth. Okay, I said softly. His breath caught. Then he kissed me once more, gentle, lingering, promising. The sun dipped lower. We walked back hand in hand. Tomorrow his mother would arrive. Tomorrow the past would try to claw its way in. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, tomorrow didn't scare me. Elaine Blackwood arrived at noon the next day, stepping out of a sleek black helicopter that touched down on the private helipad behind the house like she owned the sky itself. She wore a cream cashmere coat that cost more than my old apartment, silver hair pulled into a flawless chignon, and an expression that could freeze the ocean mid-wave. Simon met her at the edge of the deck, shoulders squared, but I saw the slight tension in his jaw, the same one he got before board meetings he knew would be brutal. I watched from the glass wall of the living room, arms wrapped around my middle, heart hammering so hard the baby gave an answering thump. She didn't hug him. Just touched his cheek once, cool and assessing, then looked past him straight at me. So, she said, voice carrying over the wind like cut glass, this is the Omega who died and came back to life. Simon stepped half in front of me instinctively. Mother. Don't mother to me. You've turned the family name into tabloid fodder for a runaway fantasy. The least you can do is introduce us properly. I forced my legs to move. Stepped onto the deck. The wind whipped my hair across my face. I didn't bother tucking it back. Mrs. Blackwood, I said, keeping my voice even. I'm Nick. Or Liam, if you prefer the version the press is using. Her gaze dropped to my belly, lingered, then flicked back to my face. You look well for someone who was ashes 6 months ago. I had good reason to disappear. Did you? She tilted her head. Or did you simply decide the easiest way to secure your future was to vanish with my grandchild and let my son tear himself apart looking for you? Simon's hand found the small of my back, warm, steady. That's enough. She ignored him. I've read the reports. The staged crash. The forged records. Impressive, for a junior designer. You could have blackmailed him for millions and saved us all the drama. I didn't want his money, I said quietly. I wanted him not to destroy us. Her lips thinned. And yet here you are. Back in his house. Back in his life. Because he's changed. The words came out before I could weigh them. Or he's trying. Harder than I ever expected. Elaine studied me for a long moment. Then she turned to Simon. Inside. Both of you. We followed her into the living room like children called to the principal's office. She took the armchair facing the ocean, crossed her legs, and gestured for us to sit on the sofa opposite. Simon sat close enough that our thighs touched. I didn't pull away. She wasted no time. I've spent 40 years protecting this family's legacy from weakness. Your father, she glanced at Simon, was the epitome of it. Charming until he wasn't. Loving until it inconvenienced him. I stayed because leaving would have meant losing everything I'd built beside him. You were supposed to be different. I am, Simon said. Are you? She leaned forward. You pushed him away when he needed you most. You let him believe you'd force him to end the pregnancy. And now you expect forgiveness because you've spent a few months playing devoted suitor in a seaside town. Simon's hand tightened on mine. I don't expect forgiveness. I'm earning it. Every day. She turned to me. And you? Do you love him still? Or is this guilt? Convenience? A safe harbor for the child? The question hit like a slap. I looked at Simon, really looked. At the faint lines around his eyes that hadn't been there a year ago. At the way his thumb kept tracing slow, soothing arcs over my knuckles even now. I hated him for months, I said. I still have moments where I remember his words and it hurts. But I never stopped loving the man underneath the fear. The one who held me through every heat like I was the only thing that mattered. The one who spent every day since he found me proving he can be better. Elaine's expression didn't soften, but something shifted, curiosity, maybe calculation. And if he falters again? She asked. If the board pressures him, if the empire demands sacrifices? Then I walk, I said simply, with the baby. And this time I won't leave a trail. Simon's breath caught beside me. Elaine studied us both. Then she stood, walked to the window, and stared at the waves for a long minute. I was wrong about one thing, she said finally without turning. You're not weak, Nick. Weak Omegas don't fake their deaths and raise a child alone while the world thinks they're gone. Weak Omegas don't stand in front of me now and tell me they'll leave my son if he fails them again. She turned. Her eyes, silver like Simon's, were brighter than I expected. I won't pretend to like this. The scandal. The optics. The mess. She paused. But I won't stand in your way either. If he's truly changed, if you've both chosen this, then the child will be a Blackwood. Protected. Provided for. Loved if you'll allow it. Simon exhaled like he'd been holding his breath since childhood. Thank you, he said quietly. Don't thank me yet. She looked at me. I expect you at the estate for dinner once the child is born. Both of you. No excuses. I nodded once. We'll be there. She gathered her coat. At the door she paused, looked back at Simon. You were always more like me than him, she said. Don't waste it on fear. Then she was gone, helicopter blades slicing the air until the sound faded into the surf. Silence settled heavy and strange. Simon turned to me, eyes searching. You meant that? About walking if I falter? Yes. He nodded slowly. But I need that. I need you to keep me honest. I leaned into him then, first time I'd done it without hesitation. His arms came around me carefully, one hand splaying over the swell of my belly. The baby rolled toward his touch. I don't want to walk, I whispered against his shirt. I want this to work. He pressed his lips to my hair. Then we make it work. We stayed like that until the sun dipped low, painting the room gold. Later he cooked dinner, simple grilled fish, salad, nothing fancy, and we ate on the deck with blankets against the evening chill. No talk of empires or scandals. Just quiet. His hand on my knee. My head on his shoulder. The waves rolling in like they'd done for centuries. That night I didn't sleep in the guest room. I woke him gently when the moonlight spilled across the bed, guided his hand back to my belly when the baby stirred. He kissed me slow and deep, lips lingering, breath mingling, a quiet promise in every careful touch. We held each other through the dark hours, bodies close but gentle, the connection deeper than words or heat. Just us. Just trust rebuilding itself one heartbeat at a time. Morning came soft. And for the first time, the future didn't feel like something to survive. It felt like something to build. The contractions started at dawn 3 weeks later, subtle at first, like waves lapping farther up the shore than usual. I ignored them through breakfast, through the slow walk Simon and I took along the beach where he kept stealing glances at me like he could read the future in my face. By noon the rhythm had sharpened, each one stealing my breath a little longer. Simon noticed before I said a word. He stopped mid-sentence, eyes narrowing. Nick. I gripped the deck railing. It's time. He didn't panic. Didn't hesitate. Just scooped me up, careful, steady, and carried me inside while already on the phone with the private obstetrician who'd been on standby since we arrived. Within 30 minutes the house filled with quiet efficiency, medical team, monitors, soft voices. Simon never left my side. Labor was long. Hours of pressure, breathing, his hand in mine so tight I thought our fingers might fuse. He whispered nonsense through every peak, promises, apologies, love, soothing stories about the nursery he'd secretly started designing back in the city, about how our child would never know what it felt like to be anything less than wanted. His voice cracked only once, when a particularly sharp contraction made me cry out and I squeezed his hand hard enough to bruise. I'm here, he kept saying. I've got you. Both of you. When the final push came, the room narrowed to just us. His forehead pressed to mine, our breaths sinking, his free hand cradling the back of my head. The cry that followed was sharp, indignant, perfect. A boy. They placed him on my chest, warm, slippery, impossibly small. Dark hair already curling at the ends. Tiny fists waving like he was ready to fight the world. Simon's hand trembled as he touched our son's cheek for the first time. Hi, he whispered, voice raw. I'm your dad. The baby blinked up at him, silver gray eyes, just like his father's, and something inside me settled forever. We named him Rowan, after the trees that grew stubborn along the cliffs here, strong roots, flexible branches, surviving every storm. The first days blurred into soft exhaustion and wonder. Simon barely slept. He'd hold Rowan while I rested, humming low lullabies I didn't know he knew, changing diapers with the same focused precision he once used on multimillion-dollar deals. When Rowan fussed at night, Simon would walk the balcony with him, pointing out the stars over the ocean, telling him stories about the man who almost lost everything and found it again in the most unexpected place. One evening, as the sun dipped red into the water, Simon found me in the nursery. Rowan was asleep in the crib, tiny chest rising and falling. Simon came up behind me, arms sliding around my waist, chin resting on my shoulder. I never thought I'd get this, he murmured. I leaned back into him. Neither did I. He turned me gently to face him. From his pocket he pulled a small velvet box. Simple, black, no ostentatious shine. My heart stuttered. I promised I'd ask again, he said quietly. Properly. When you were ready. He opened the box. Inside was a thin platinum band, embedded with a single small sapphire, the color of the ocean at dusk. No diamond, no flash, just quiet beauty. Nick Reed, or Liam Hayes, or whoever you want to be, I love you. Not the version of you that fit into my world before. Not the version I tried to control. All of you. The one who ran to protect our son. The one who came back anyway. The one who's teaching me every day what real strength looks like. Tears blurred my vision. Simon, marry me. Not because the world expects it. Not because of Rowan. Marry me because you want to build the rest of this life with me. Because you believe we can. I looked at the ring. At him. At the sleeping baby who'd brought us back together when everything said we should have stayed broken. Yes, I whispered. His breath caught. He slid the ring onto my finger with shaking hands, then pulled me into a kiss, slow, deep, full of everything we'd survived. His lips moved over mine with careful reverence, tasting of salt and promise. One hand cupped my face, the other rested over my heart like he needed to feel it beating to believe this was real. I kissed him back just as slowly, fingers threading into his hair, letting every unsaid word pour into the connection between us. When we parted, foreheads touching, he smiled, small, real, unguarded. Thank you, he breathed, for choosing me again. When the officiant said we could kiss, Simon cupped my face with both hands and kissed me like it was the first time and the last time and every time in between, gentle, lingering, full of quiet joy. The ocean roared approval behind us. Rowan wriggled happily in Mia's arms. Later, after everyone left and the house was ours again, we sat on the deck with Rowan asleep between us. Simon's arm around my shoulders, my head on his chest, the new ring catching moonlight. We made it, I said softly. He pressed a kiss to my temple. We're just starting. I looked up at him, my alpha, my husband, the man who'd searched through hell to find us. And for the first time, I believed forever wasn't something to fear. It was something we'd already begun. The end. Thank you everyone for watching. I also want to hear your thoughts about this story, and as you do so, don't forget to subscribe, like and share for more amazing BL stories.